Exercise number 1 is the bridge. Now, it's a very simple exercise. If you've watched any of my tutorials before, I like to keep it as simple as possible. There are some content creators out there that like to use the latest trend, but what I tend to find is that the fundamentals, the exercises that have stood the test of time, they are generally more than adequate for what we need them to be able to do. So the first exercise to build our lower back without building our lower back is the bridge. And what we need to do, so it is the traditional bridge where we come down, we have our feet sort of hip to shoulder width apart, and we lift up and we squeeze the hips. Now, the main things that we want to focus on when we're in this position is when we lift the hips, we get to the top and we squeeze through the glutes. What we're trying not to do is push too high to arch the back. That's the one thing we want to avoid, is the arching of the back. So we want to come up and we want to squeeze the glutes. The next thing we want to do is we want to brace the abdominals. Then bring the hands across the chest and hold here. Now, in this scenario, what you may find is that if it's somewhat challenging to be able to get into this position, you can use the elbows to help you not only support how much work the hips do, but also getting the hips into the right place. So you can push the elbows into the floor here. But otherwise, it would be arms across the chest, and then engaging the glutes, and then tightening the abdominals. So that is exercise number 1. Now, what we've then got is a couple of progressions that can go with it. Now, the main focus on why we start with the double leg bridge is so we can get the squeeze of the hips. So what that then does is that allows us to move into the next stage, which is when we go up onto one leg. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a single leg bridge this time. So we're going to come into position. We're going to bring our feet and knees together. Now, what we've already done with the normal bridge is we've come up and we've got our hips engaged. So we've got our glutes squeezed so we can feel those. So that's the first part that we need to be able to do. We don't just come up and just go into this position, because what we may be missing is the conscious activation of the glute muscle. So we want to be able to feel the muscle working. If we're up in the position, it probably is working, but we want to be able to feel it consciously. So we come up, we get the squeeze. The next thing we do is we then lift the leg up and hold there, and we do exactly the same. We feel the squeeze in the hip, we feel the tightness of the abs, and we bring the arms across the chest. Again, if you need to, you can use the elbows to push into the floor like so, and then we hold. Then you would come down, and then you would go same on the other side. Now, when we take it into the next exercise, so we've got the double leg bridge where we can squeeze the hips. We've then got the single leg bridge, which is a little bit harder because it's one leg at a time, or one glute at a time that's activating. Now, from an activation perspective, we are going to be working on alternating between the two. So we're going to be adding a march into the bridge now. So this is, you could say it's another progression. In some ways, it's a little bit easier than the single leg bridge, but in other ways, it's a little bit harder than the single leg bridge. And it's harder because we're alternating the activation between the hips as we march. So what we would do is we would bring, again, we would have the feet relatively, we don't have to bring them completely close together, but we want to keep them close. So no wider than hip width apart. What we then do, same position, we come up, number 1, we need to get the squeeze. And then we lift, we go down, and now I'm activating this side. But again, activate this side. I want to be able to hold it, and I want to be able to feel that muscle contract. And the other thing is, when I do come up, is I want to be able to keep that hip up without arching the back, holding it there and in that position. And that's the bridge march. So that's the first, you could say that's the first exercise, the bridge, but with 2 extra progressions in the single leg bridge and the bridge with the march. But all the way through, we're activating the glutes, we're making sure we can feel it, we're bracing the abdominals to hold the body in position, we're not arching the back, and then we can use the elbows to support ourselves as well.